Hi, this is Brian from Street Snappers and welcome to this, the first of my regular street photography critique videos. Critique is a really important thing for photographers, and it's one of the ways we all develop and grow as street photographers. But good critique is often sadly lacking, and we don't all have access to it. Okay, there are platforms like Instagram, and maybe more of that in a future video. And Instagram is one of these things that's great for getting your work out there. But when it comes to critique, it's often sadly lacking. And we put an image on Instagram and we get a couple of meaningless emojis, or we get some praise like awesome capture that doesn't really help. What we really need is some frank and constructive feedback. So each month I'll walk you through some of my favourite entries into the monthly Street Snappers Challenge and talk about what drew me to them, what I like, what I didn't like, but then have a look at what perhaps the photographer could do next time to get an even better shot. It's important to remember that the point of critique is to help people improve, and I think brutal critique isn't all that helpful. So let's try and be frank and constructive, and I always find there's something positive to say about a picture, whatever you think about it. So the theme for the November challenge was night shooting, going out there and taking some street photography shots during the hours of darkness. So let's dive straight in and have a look. So let's look at this first image, which was taken by Les Telford. Les tells me this was taken in Blackpool, which is always a good place for some night shooting. And I think you've only got to look at Doogie Wallace's Stags and Hens project for evidence of that. With this one, I think the composition is nicely balanced, and the main element, the two customers, they're in a position that roughly equates to the rule of thirds, which is by no means essential, but it's not a bad thing. I just wonder if one of these guys has seen you. I think that there's that look there, a bit of eye contact that really adds something to the picture. Maybe it would have been nice to see these guys a little more dominant in the frame, but that would have meant maybe cropping too much and losing something important. But having said that, I'd be inclined to crop a little, I think, from the bottom, top and sides, just to draw the eye in a little bit closer into the action. The colour cast in this one is predominantly blue, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I'd be interested to see what effect a little warmth has on the overall aesthetic. I think there's enough detail and interest here to hold the eye for a while, which is always a good thing, and I think overall it's a decent keeper. So well done, Les. Blackpool, by the way, is one of my favourite locations for street photography. And if you're interested in Blackpool as a venue, I will be running several workshops there next year. Just leave a comment in the box below if you're interested, and I'll keep you posted. Next up, we have this shot from Pamela Harradine. And I think this is quite a dynamic image, and the style reminds me a little bit of Daido Moriyama, which is no bad thing. I think you can just about make out that the person's smiling, and it looks like she's having a bit of fun splashing through the water. And there's a real sense of movement here and fluidity, and the fact that the person is blurred and out of focus doesn't really bother me. It's clearly motion blur and not a focus issue. So again, I think that really adds something to it. And well, in fact, it does lend a bit of an abstract quality to the image. I think the sky is maybe a little bright, which makes me think it wasn't taken in complete darkness. But having said that, maybe it was. And one of the problems with shooting with a digital camera at night is that the camera will usually want to try and make night look like day. And if you shot at night with a mobile phone, you'll have experienced this, and cameras want to do the same sort of thing. So sometimes we've got to just tell the camera it is night and we want a darker image. And I just like to have seen the sky a little bit darker, perhaps. But I do like the highlights, which I think are car headlights in the water towards the back end of the shot. But overall, it's good. It's a fun image, a bit of an abstract, and for me, it's a keeper. Now we've got a shot by Richard Keeling. This one looks to me as though it was taken in Soho, which is always a great place for this kind of street photography. Looking at this, a couple of things drew me to it. First of all, the colours, and then the shapes of the umbrellas. And both of these things, colours and shapes, are quite important when shooting at night. I think the colours work really well together here. You've got the warmness of the yellow and the coolness of the blue, and there's a nice contrast there. I like the way the yellow orange is shining through the translucent umbrella. The positioning of the umbrellas against the light is good and works well. I'd probably darken the area at the top of the image a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of post-production in street photography, and I try and do as little as I can get away with. And I think you're always in danger of taking away authenticity if you do too much in post. But I would probably darken the top of the image a little bit, just to draw the eye down a little bit and into the main subject. As with any kind of street photography, timing is critical. Timing is everything. And I accept that Richard needed to be quick here to get the shot, but I think I'd prefer to have seen the guy on the left just a little bit further to the right. But overall, I think it's a striking image, it's a strong keeper, and it's just a very good example of this kind of night shot. A little bit of a feel of Saul Leiter about it, I guess, very fashionable at the moment. So yeah, well done, Richard, I like this. Next, we have a picture from Santos Alvarez Leone, who lives in Spain. And this is quite intriguing because it's only having looked at it a few times that I saw the figure standing there in the gloom just underneath that sort of plastic canopy. What I like about this is the atmosphere, and I think that moisture in the air, whether it's smoke or a bit of mist, the way it catches that white light or blue light under the canopy, and also the red or orange of the traffic light, that it's just got something about it. And then you see that guy there, but you have got to look too hard to find him. And I just do a little bit of nifty bit of photoshopping just to bring his face, just to lift his face out of the shadows a little, but without brightening any of the other parts of the frame. Yeah, lovely atmosphere created by the mist, as I think I said. I'd maybe also reduce the highlights a little on the traffic light. It's maybe too dominant. Just bring that down a shade. But overall, it's an interesting shot, and yeah, it's a keeper for me. But I just think it's a good candidate for some subtle tweaks which would really elevate it. And the reason I've put it in here as one of these images for critique is not necessarily because it's one of the best images, but it's one that I think would benefit from just a little more work. So has real potential. This shot from Tony Lloyd-Davies is, I think it's my pick of the bunch actually. I really like this. First impressions are, well, there's just a bit of a wow factor with this for me. It's very atmospheric, melancholic, sinister almost. And I like the use of negative space here, which I think there's probably a little bit of photoshopping done here just to darken the areas that don't contribute very much to the image, but it works. And those big swathes of darkness really add to the atmosphere. I think it's got a stylish feel to it, and it just makes me think a little bit of the painter Edward Hopper, who used sources of light very effectively. And this really is what street shooting at night is all about. We've got to find the sources of light and make good use of them, and that's exactly what Tony does here. What I also like about this is there's little or no evidence of the 21st century. There are no cars in the shot, no white vans, no people in high-vis jackets, no gaudy branding. It's just got this timeless feel to it. One very small niggle is the slightly wonky verticals, and I think it would have just been a tiny, tiny tweak to get those that pole and the lamppost just completely straight. It's just not quite there, and it's just a little bit distracting. Not a big problem, and very easy to correct. So in a situation like this, you need to decide what is your dominant vertical or horizontal in other cases, if that's appropriate, and then use that dominant line to straighten everything else up. And I think the dominant line here is probably that post in the middle of the frame. So straighten that and everything else will just be a bit tidier. I would probably also question the sharpness of the image. It's just a little bit soft, I think, but I can live with this as the overall aesthetic is so strong. And sharpness is always an issue when shooting at night, and to get a sharp image at night, you really need to whack up that ISO, and don't be afraid of a little extra noise. It's better having the noise than having a soft or blurry image. But overall, I absolutely love this. Really stylish shot, and there really isn't much I'd want to change. Well done, Tony. It's an absolute winner for me. And finally, this image from Wendy Chalk. And I was with Wendy on a night shooting workshop in Soho when she took this, and I can remember that scene very well. It was outside Ronnie Scott's in Frith Street in Soho, and I shot the same scene. But Wendy went in much, much closer, and I saw her taking the picture, and I just knew she'd nailed it when I saw her taking it. And with a shot like this at night, I mean, these guys look a little bit threatening. The guy on the left is a bouncer. It takes a bit of courage to get in close, so very well done for that, Wendy. It paid off. And you've caught a good moment here, and for me, street photography is all about the moment. It has a slightly menacing air to it. You found a good light source and made it work for you. Again, the light source is just so important. On the subject of light, maybe the colour temperature needs a bit of a tweak. It's too warm. Just bring it down a little bit to make it look more realistic. Again, this one is a little bit soft, and again, I appreciate the struggles we have at night when you've got a fast-moving moment. The light is poor. The shutter speed is probably not where you want it to be. Focusing can be a nightmare. You've really got to get that ISO high, and I'm typically shooting at 6,400 in situations like this. Even more, 12,800 isn't unusual, and just go for it. You can control the noise a little bit in post-production, and that generally works well enough. But a little bit of noise, as I said, is better than a soft shot. But having said that, Wendy's done really well to get this, and all credit to her. Looking at it again, I probably have stood a little bit further back just to get a little bit more context of the scene in the frame. Maybe that neon Ronnie Scott logo, which just adds a nice sense of place. But hey, it's easy to make these decisions with hindsight, and yeah, it's a good shot. It's a keeper. Well done, Wendy. I really enjoyed reviewing those images, but what did you think of them? It would be great to have your views, so please have a look and leave some comments in the comments box below. Personally, I find that offering critique can be just as fulfilling as receiving it, and giving critique can help us discover what appeals to us about an image, and it can help us find out what works and what doesn't work. So I would urge everybody to really take this critique thing seriously. If you'd like to spend more time looking at these images, I've put them onto the Street Photography blog, and I've posted the link below, so check that out and you can spend a bit more time on each image and soak it all in. As I said earlier, these images have been taken from the Street Snappers Club monthly challenge. The Street Snappers Club is a street photography club that is exclusively for people who have been on my workshops. And if you'd like to find out more, have a look at StreetSnappers.com. The Street Photography Club is a great place to arrange meetups wherever you are in the world. It's a good place to talk techniques and tips. It's a good place to talk about gear. If you're thinking about buying a new camera or a new lens, there's a lot of experience in the club and people will help you. It's a good place to post images and share images and get critique on your pictures from your peers. It's just a good, inclusive, dynamic, diverse collection of street photographers where discussion is the thing. For more information about the club, go straight to StreetSnappers.com. If you found this video useful, I'd be really grateful if you hit that like button. And if you're into street photography, please subscribe, because there will be lots more to come. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.